Hey there, it's Lotus. Welcome to Art of Sacred Embodiment. Thanks for being here. Thanks for liking and subscribing if it resonates. And if you're new, we talk about everything embodiment within the Ascension process. And if you're not new, thanks for coming back and welcome. So, we're going to talk about embodiment today. And, what we call my work is Art of Sacred Embodiment. And the artistry part of this is the uniqueness and the creative process, literally, that runs through us as we move through our evolutionary process. This process takes us from the stages of personal growth and our then spiritual evolution, from awakening, from healing, into the remembrance of our wholeness. And there are many phases and stages within this, and even within the ascension, the overarching ascension journey, there are many different categories that feed into this process, and everybody has their specialties. Mine happens to be embodiment. Mine happens to be anchoring these changes and shifts into a lived expression, into a rebirthing and becoming the remembrance, that deeper knowing of what we've always been and what we've always been meant to grow into and evolve into. But it has to be internalized, and that transformation happens through embodiment. So when we're looking at embodiment, we're going to break a couple things down today. Excuse me. And as we look at the overall picture, let's just take a minute to get like some really clear examples of embodiment. So let's look at the phase of a caterpillar going into the chrysalis. In one phase and stage of its right alignment and its true expression, this caterpillar, they're super cute for the most part, right? They're fuzzy. They've got all those legs. Some of them are very pretty. They go into the phase of the chrysalis. And this is that inner sanctum, right? That inner sanctuary where deep, deep transformation is going to happen. And during that time, when they're in that chrysalis, there's the breaking down. Literally, their entire body transforms, breaks down, turns into this goo. It's pretty intense when we think about it. And then it is resurrected, so to speak, into the butterfly. The butterfly knows exactly when to break free. You cannot break that chrysalis through, let's say, a willful attempt, right? So if we were to break open that chrysalis, that life would probably end because it's not ready, right? So this chrysalis process allows a new becoming. The literal body transforms, right? The dragonfly goes through a similar process. It's a bottom feeder. It's kind of a predator. You might have heard me talk about this before. In the bottom of waters, and then eventually it starts crawling up the reeds of, plant growth and stalks. And then once again, this one form of being completely breaks down and breaks out. The dragonfly breaks out from in it. And there's a lot of things that have to do with the DNA. There's a lot of things that have to do with the different cells. But then the dragonfly is birthed. So these are they're pretty intense processes, and they're very stark differences, right? There's like two completely different creatures from one to the next, and yet they're the same. Our human evolution, which is the awakening, and our spiritual then awakening and evolution, is the same thing. Now, I'm not going to get into the whole light body piece of this, but this is the distant vision that we as humans, as the dimensional shifts happen within our consciousness and we hold more light in our body, we begin to go through that shift from the very physicality into more light. We become light beings. What is the name for that? Homo luminous. Okay, so we break into that homo luminous phase. And then we could also say we become more divine beings than simply just human beings. But that's far off, and I don't really go there because I haven't had direct experience of it enough to really talk about it. So what is your chrysalis? And why is the chrysalis important? And what does embodiment really mean for us on this journey? So I alluded to some of it in the last video as I talked about the different qualities, the divine qualities that we are becoming more able to express and to be those qualities as we do our deeper inner work. Now, if we were to look back over ancient times, we will remember there were mystery schools, right? There were ashrams, there were temples, there were caves where the hermits went, right? There were the forest sages and rishis. What the theme is that there were sanctums where men, primarily men during the ancient times, but then women also in the mystery schools, where people went to go through this chrysalis process, or at least to go through different phases and stages of it at different periods of time. We, in contemporary times, we're very fortified in the mind with information, and we want intellectual understanding of our spiritual journey and awakening. So this is very much that masculine, right? That heavy bent into the imbalanced masculine that we have been programmed and conditioned into for hundreds of years and thousands of years, we could also say. And this is a time where the feminine ways of knowing, right, not from the mind, but from an embodied space, from the sanctuaries of old, were places that we would go. We don't need to isolate as much anymore because the frequencies are very different and we are in a rapid awakening process. And yet, we still need those experiences of hibernation, And I always talk about how the fall and the winter are really where we are built, we have that built into us. That time to go within, to hibernate. And this is one of the most, ideal opportunities during these seasons for us to be in a chrysalis. And we're not going to be in the chrysalis nonstop, right? Because we do have modern life here. However, we do have the free will. And we do have the option to gain awareness and to make choices for ourselves. What is it that our spiritual evolution is? What does that mean for us, right? What is the deeper resonance that it holds for us? What is our blueprint? What is that meaning of life for each of us individually? That we are here to live. And we live it through the embodiment. And so when we're looking at the embodiment, we're always embodying something. Let's stick with the example of, let's say, an ashram, because there are many ashrams today, or mystery schools, all right? So an individual might get the tap on their shoulder that they're needing, right? They're needing to seek something unknown. We'll just say the universe, God, whatever that is, right? They feel it on a soul level. Something is calling them forth. And yet they don't have an orientation to it. And they don't really understand that it is a deep journey, and yet they follow that call, right? So they find an ashram, they find a mystery school, and they enter into that container. They enter into that sanctuary. And while they're there, they're being taught. They're being taken through phases and stages of their own breakdown and breakthrough. And as they go through every stage, we'll call those initiations, every stage of initiation where they are broken down from everything that they used to be. And normally these are thought forms, right? These are beliefs. These are levels of awareness. These are ranges of expansion or heightened perceptions from where they began. And at every initiatory stage, they get to choose. Do I continue forward? And if their soul is a yes, then they keep going deeper and they keep going deeper. After X amount of time, X amount of years, right, where they move from the adept, where they're learning, right, they're in that beginning stage and phase of awakening. So over on Patreon, I have 2 videos. If you were to scroll further down, I have one video that's on awakening, and then another video that's on ascension. I categorize these into 2 different phases of our becoming, because one leads to the other, but we have to really be choosing to access those next phases and stages, right? For each of these, we have to keep choosing to access our greater unfolding. Okay, it's a segue. So you can go over there and check these out. So who we are when we go into this mystery school, who these individuals are when they go into the temples, into the ashram, into the mystery school, is going to be very different than who they are when they came out. What these containers do is they hold the space long enough for individuals to move through these phases and stages and anchor in the becoming, anchor in the embodiment of the new self, of the new consciousness, of the new energetics, of the new perceptions, of the new levels of love. Because the world, when we're operating out in the world, we're consistently going to be pulled out and distracted. And in our world today, there is so much information, right? And it's needed. It's needed because we're in a mass awakening and everybody has their own ways in which they're called through this process. And yet, at some phase and stage, we have to get out of the gathering information and becoming the information that is translated into deeper wisdom and embodiment, where we are no longer who we were. We are very different. Now, that might be imperceptible to some people, right? Because we have a wide spectrum then from which we can operate, and yet there's the way that we're bringing through a frequency and a level of consciousness that is not what was. Now, the embodiment part of this is literally energetic. It is literally our energetics shift. Our DNA gets activated from our human DNA into what used to be called the junk DNA, which is now our divine DNA. This is the coding and the information for a whole new blueprint of being. And our human self has the self-will and the power of choice of how deep do I want to go into my true alignment, into becoming what I'm here to become, and how efficiently do I want to do it, right? How much ease and grace do I want to have as I move through these processes? And how much devotion do I have to my divinity? Devotion to our divinity is very different than our desire for information and for the excitement of the mental stimulation. That's the masculine. The feminine is about allowing your life to become the chrysalis so that you deeply embody what it is that you are ingesting, the energetics that you're taking in. And are you digesting them? Are you assimilating them? Are you allowing that information to activate, because of the deep resonance, that part of you that is waiting to be known? And we walk it down to this plane through new levels of consciousness and higher perception and expansion. We all get this choice. We're going through this, right? Everybody is getting affected by this at some point. So I give myself like 5 minutes a day to kind of scroll through Instagram and or Facebook. And then I just wait and see what actually resonates with me. I don't spend a lot of time on there, but like, ooh, what's striking that chord of my soul that wants to be engaged with. And this is a very conscious process, right? I use my alignment and my free will to put parameters on how much I ingest based on my own, grading. I want to say grading. My own grading system for myself of, it's not really grading, but what I need at any given time. Let's just put it that way. And so there was a woman, I don't know her name, but she was talking about how in the last 24 to 48 hours, we've been hit by all these massive flares from the sun. I don't know all the scientific names of them. And so if you're feeling anxious, right, or if you're feeling tired, or if you're feeling kind of out of sorts, it's because the frequencies, the energies are hitting the planet, and the resonance and the reverberation is going through us. So the Schumann resonance, right, sort of went through this spike. That's another way of looking at it. And so I love that, right? Because yesterday I woke up and I could just feel like it's that cortisol feel that I get when that's kind of shooting when I know, like, oh, okay, we got frequencies coming in. Plus it was the full moon. And so I could feel like, oh, I just felt revved. I felt like energized, and I felt like I needed to do. But it was the moon time, so I knew also that I needed to just be in the receptive mode, not of the feminine, not in that masculine. I could tell it was a little too jittery. Same thing this morning. I just felt like ready for action. And so here I am. But this is an example of how we're all being impacted by these frequencies. And if we don't know how to recognize the consciousness, because it's information and consciousness, it's upgrades that are coming in, and most of you are familiar with this. We're being upgraded. But we have to be in communication with the upgrades. We have to have practices in place so that we actually can embody the frequencies and information and let it align us with the next little phases, the mini activations of our ascension process. If we don't know how to do this, to work with embodiment, it's an experience that just, oh wow, downloads are coming in, but then you're not doing anything with them, right? We have to know how to work with them. So, this is what embodiment is all about. We have to be knowing what our body, what our psyche, what our brain, what our nervous system, what our cells, what they need in order to anchor in the light. So light language, this is one of the modalities for this specifically. Light language helps and assists in this process of embodiment. But there are other practices, there's other levels of awareness, and then we have to choose to be present with the embodiment piece. We have to use our free will to come into alignment so that we can actually progress through the phases and stages and be transformed, not in quite the radical ways as the butterfly and the dragonfly, at least not all the time. Some of us have to go through deeper levels of initiation. But these are shorter blips of our initiation that move our humanity into our divinity, that take us from, I started to say in the beginning, we are always embodying something. Most of us are embodying our wounds. So that means we live from our wounding, we live from our pain and suffering, we think in terms from our pain and suffering, we are protected from our pain and suffering. So we're embodying our pain and suffering, and then that becomes a magnet for our perception to perceive more pain and suffering in whatever degrees and expressions that is for everybody. What we're learning now, which is what most of us, if you're watching this, you're in the process of this, how do we live from our divinity? How do we embody our divinity? How do we live from more joy and beauty and peace and harmony and faith and trust? And then that becomes our reality once it's our reality within. So everything outside of us becomes a mirror of what is inside of us. It's always been this way, and it continues to be this way, and it will continue to be this way. My kitty. Hi, buddy. I'll let you in a minute. Our stray, it's becoming much more of a, I don't know, our outdoor house cat lets me know when he wants to come in. I'll be there in a minute. So we each get to ask, what do we choose at every juncture? And sometimes we forget that there are choices to be made when we're on this, whirlwind process. And yet, this is imperative, right? What timeline do I really want to be living in? What is the experience that I want to be not just experiencing, but receiving as my reality? All of this comes to us through embodiment. So, Art of Sacred Embodiment, this is partly what I'm here to help you with. Reach out. Sessions are available one-on-one. You can also hop over to Patreon, join as a free member or a paid member, either way, and receive assistance there as well. All right. So I hope this is helpful, because we don't always understand. We don't always understand the nuts and bolts, and so different way showers have different specialties and different ways that when it's all brought into the whole, it all starts to make more sense to us, this journey. And we see that it's vast, but we see more and more we have to choose the experience that we actually want, not just the information, the full body lived transformation. All right. Many blessings. Much love. Links will be below.